you made a point in a tweet or an article that you wrote recently saying that what the Biden administration did with Putin's finances is we basically put his economy on super warp by allowing the Nord Stream 2. Like we've said, yes, great, let's make him even richer. Let's make Russia even richer. This will be great. And without asking, wait, what does Putin do when he's feeling powerful? What does Putin do when he's controlling oil markets and knows he's got this spigot of money coming in?
Megyn, today's not the day for politics, but when you put climate change at the top of your foreign policy agenda, right? When the first person to go meet Vladimir Putin from the Biden administration is not Secretary Blinken or the president, but Secretary Kerry. When you put that at the top of a list, the bad guys just smile. They shake your hand and say, you bet, we'll work on carbon right alongside you. And then they proceed to pollute and invade.
What do you think the number one thing Trump would do if he were president would be?
I think he would have done a lot more to prevent this in the first instance. I get asked all the time, would this have happened? You know, I can't prove it, Megyn. I think it's unfathomable that what would have happened while President Trump and I were in charge of American national security. We had a deterrence model that worked, that convinced dictators all around the world that we would impose real costs on you. The Iranians certainly lived that in the strike on Qasem Soleimani. We were clear about the things that mattered. We did put America first and drew a set of lines, and then we're prepared to enforce them with enormous viciousness. I think that's what we do today. I think we wouldn't piecemeal out sanctions. I think we wouldn't have capped America's energy production. I think we would be doing the things that I have described here this morning. And I'm convinced Vladimir Putin would have a very different sense of opportunity.
One of the disturbing things about what we're witnessing is the cozying up of China and Russia. And, you know, the concern is real that the more we alienate Putin, the more he runs into the arms of President Xi. And where does that leave us? I know you've been honest about the fact that President Trump really wanted you to take a look at that. And how do we drive a wedge in between those two, as opposed to create circumstances where they're embracing one another, and that it was a lot harder than it looked. So can you give us some perspective on the risks that we're looking at here, and whether it's still possible to sort of pull a Nixon and like divide the two of them by giving one of them what they want?
Yes, the reverse Kissinger, they trying to use Russia as the nation that pulled closer to the West.
Right.
President Trump, truly, he did. He wanted to find places that we could work with the Russians. And so I endeavored to do that, both as CIA director and as Secretary of State. We took down some terror plots there. Indeed, Vladimir Putin thanked me for that work. Right. Saving lives, demonstrating that working with the West provided a more secure country for you were the kinds of things that we were working on. It was difficult to do, Megyn, to be honest with you. We had 2.5 years. We had the Russia hoax hanging over our heads. Each time I would travel to Russia, the stories were Pompeo, Russian asset.
Oh, my Lord.
Right?
They're still writing. Oh, he referred to him as strong. They're still picking apart your language with respect to Vladimir Putin. You can say a leader is strong while still trying to criticize their policy and coming after that. Anyway, we don't need to waste time on it. Keep going.
Goodness gracious. I spent my whole life trying to destroy the communist parties around the world. I don't intend to walk away from that now. I'll say one more thing. You know, if you don't acknowledge your enemy's assets, their capabilities, you'll call them the JV and you'll end up getting your head cut off. That's what President Obama did to ISIS, and we had to come in and solve that problem for him and for America as well. Look, Putin can understand American power, but what we ought to do is find a place where his look to the West, his desire to say, can I really find a way to find a relationship with the West that works for me? Was something that we were intent upon seeking common course. We didn't get all the way. Make no mistake about it, he will cozy up to the Chinese Communist Party if we don't get him looking west. I think that most Russians would prefer to look west rather than east. And he knows this too. He will always be the sidecar. He'll always be the second fiddle to Xi Jinping. They have a massive economy and 1.4 billion people. He's never going to be Xi Jinping's true partner. I think Putin knows that. But if it is convenient for the moment to work alongside a Chinese Communist Party, they do share a desire to expand their hegemon, their space, and they also share a deep understanding that human life doesn't matter. In that sense, Xi and Putin are cousins. We ought to do our best to create space as between them, and do our best to make sure that we have that resources and assets and singular focus on the Chinese Communist Party that the next 50 years are going to demand.
how likely is it that we do see action by China with respect to Taiwan now, and how soon?
Megyn, I'm worried about it. I've been worried about it for a long time. Xi also is someone who seizes moments of opportunity. He might well see this as a moment of opportunity as well. He's already put an enormous amount of pressure on Taiwan. I'm actually going to travel there a week from now to demonstrate American support for the people of Taiwan and to talk with their leadership about the things they can do to defend themselves. We have to wonder whether Xi Jinping might not say, if America is not prepared to lead, if they're not prepared to build out alliances with Australia, with South Korea, with Japan, with India, with all of our economic partners in the region, then maybe I just can get a green light, and maybe I too could do something like what Putin is doing today in Ukraine, in Taiwan, and the world will simply shrug its shoulders. That'd be really bad for the United States of America. I could go on about the reasons, but we should start with the very semiconductors that people are listening to your podcast on were most certainly made in either South Korea or Taiwan. We need to do our level best to make sure we continue to be able to defend our national security and not depend on high-end technology that comes from a place that would be under the control of Xi Jinping.
Well, and isn't this one of the proposals with respect to Putin to take away his ability to access those semiconductors and lean on technology firms and other countries providing him to not do so? Because, I mean, that would certainly undermine his abilities militarily and otherwise. And let's not forget about hacking. That's one of the things we worry about. A cyber attack, as Putin can attack us, yes, with nukes, but of course there's, mutually assured destruction, that whole thing. But cyber, and he's already done that in Ukraine. The question about whether that might be coming our way if we get too involved in this looms.
It might. They have a very capable cyber force. There's no doubt about that. We're pretty damn good too, Megyn. We're pretty capable at both responding when required, and we're pretty good at defending and protecting ourselves from that as well. There can be a hiccup if some bad actor wants to do something. Offense is easier to play in defense in the cyberspace, but make no mistake about it, Vladimir Putin knows we're very capable there as well. It does suggest one other thing, Megyn. I do worry about this problem of cascading threats. You said Russia, I would say Afghanistan, Russia, then China. I'm worried about Iran as well. We are on the cusp, it appears, of signing a piece of paper that will prove worthless in making sure that Iran doesn't end up with a nuclear weapon. We were determined, and we worked really hard and made progress at denying them the wealth and resources they need to build out a nuclear weapons program. It looks like we're about to hand them $5, $7, $10 billion with which to conduct terror campaigns around the world. And this axis of partners from Russia to China to Iran and North Korea is real in their disdain for the West. It is real in their belief that America and the West are in decline. And to see Putin make this kind of advance without real costs imposed on him does run the risk of a cascading series of problems to protect American interests.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.